The best way to organize ideas in academic writing is to organize ideas into paragraphs. And paragraph don't usually just begin as a paragraph. A paragraph starts like a sentence, then several sentences now make up a paragraph. So at this point, I just want to talk a little bit about sentences. I'm just taking you way back to primary school when we started constructing simple sentences. We learned about compound sentences. So basically, we have several types of sentences, but you can go online, go to Google, you can learn more about types of sentences that you can have in a paragraph. But the most basic thing is that we have what we call simple sentences. So a simple sentence is one that has only one verb, one subject, and one object. So maybe to just illustrate what a subject means, what an object means, and what a verb means, I will use a simple sentence like let me say Aswani ate the mango. So this is a very simple sentence. So in this case, ate is our verb, which is the past tense of the word eat. And then once we identify the verb, the best way to know which is the subject and which is the object is to first of all identify the verb in that sentence. So in this case, our verb is the word ate. So to identify the subject, you think about the who. Okay, the who part of it. Who did it? Who did the eating? Who is doing the eating? So at this point, we have identified. We have already identified the verb. Okay, which is ate. So we need to identify the subject, and then we identify the object. So the subject is a person acting or doing something. The person, in this case, the word is it. The person doing the verb. A verb is a doing word. So in a sentence, the subject is a person or thing doing something. So in this case, who is doing something? Aswani. And then the object is the person or thing feeling the impact. I don't know if that is the best way to define an object. You can go online and check, but I think it's just about who or what feels the impact of the verb. So in this case, the object becomes mango. So the most direct way of communicating in academic writing is to write in this order. Identify first of all, identify the verb. And always, for the most direct way of writing, is that the subject appears first before the object. So make sure that when you're writing, it is better, the sentence is simpler and more direct when the subject starts, which means the subject should be on the left side of the verb. So if this is the verb, the subject should be on the left side, okay, this other side. And then the object should come after the verb. So if I was to interchange this, it will be the mango was eaten by Aswani. So you note both sentences, this sentence and this one are both correct. However, in this case, I have interchanged. The mango begins, which means the object begins. Okay, so remember Aswani is our subject, ate is a verb, and then the mango is the object. So by doing this, by interchanging this, we have rearranged the order in which the subject and the object appears in this sentence. And by doing so, we have made this sentence longer than it should be. You can see here we had just 4 words, 1, 2, 3, 4, but here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 words. So we have made it longer by interchanging the order. And academic writing is never about being too wordy and fill up space. Academic writing is always about trying to be brief, okay, because it's quality over quantity. Writing is always about quality. So don't worry about Kindly mute. Mora, you need to mute your. So writing is never about trying to fill up space. Most people believe when you're doing academic writing, the only thing you need to do is now fill up space, writing so many words so that you fill up space quickly and get paid. No, it's about choosing words carefully, being miser with words because you want to focus on the quality of your submissions, not the quantity of words you have. So in this case, by interchanging, we are making the sentence a bit longer unnecessarily. So whenever you're writing a sentence, always try to make it simple. Okay, try to make it simple by not interchanging the order of the subject and the object. So, and the easiest way you can identify this issue is by looking at the word by. Whenever you see a word by in a sentence, it might indicate that maybe you have interchanged the order. I'm not saying when I write something like this, Aswani traveled by air. This the by in this case is not a problem. Okay, but when you see by, just be very careful. That is the easiest way I can just tell you. When you see or view the word by in a sentence, it is likely that you have interchanged the order and therefore making the sentence appear unnecessarily long and complex. Most of the students that we will be helping are international students, which means maybe they are Chinese or Brazilians or Mexicans who have gone to study in English speaking countries like the UK and the US or Australia. So English is not their first language, and you try to make things complex. You make it harder for them to understand what you are writing. And the essence is that you help them so that they can understand and they can replicate the same in class. So let us always try to make things simple by using the simplest forms of sentences, by avoiding of too many words that maybe you can do away with and still remain maintain your idea or your point. So I'm not going to go deeper into sentences and how to construct sentences. That is your homework. You can just go on. If you feel you have a problem constructing sentences, you can just go online and learn on your own. But I think this is just one of the things I felt most people commit. Most people use this form. Like if I was to give another example, would be this sentence appears okay, but we have interchanged the order in which the subject and the verb appears, the subject and the object appear. So we can rewrite it by saying the UN considers Kenya the richest country. So it is more direct than when we are trying to use this form of it. So I think I can just stop there about sentences and move on to something else. So always try to rearrange the order, not to rearrange the order, sorry. Always try not to rearrange the order. Always let the subject appear before the object, which means avoid using by, okay, in sentences. Not in all sentences, please. I'm not saying that every sentence that has the word by is wrong. No. It's just a better way of communicating when we are more direct. We start with the subject. The UN considers Kenya the richest country, as opposed to saying Kenya is considered the richest country by the UN. So I think that is done. The next thing I wanted to talk about when in regards to sentences is writing in active voice as opposed to writing in passive voice. So I think many people have a problem with the passive voice. Even if I was to open the sample we were reviewing earlier, I would find many instances of writing in passive voice. I don't want to go into details in terms of defining what passive voice is. I want to give you the simplest definition that will help you as academic writers. Whenever you write a sentence which has a verb, and that verb does not have the subject, that sentence might be in passive voice. For example, if I was saying I'm writing several sentences, although so here we have some sentences. The first one is Kenya is considered one of the most developed nations in Africa. The second one is although COVID-19 is not as deadly as Ebola, more needs to be done to protect low-income households from the harsh economic times. These sentences appear okay in other fields, in normal speaking, when we are writing in other areas, they would be okay. But in this case, these sentences, both of them appear to be, they are in passive voice. Because if I read this sentence, I can't really know who is considering Kenya the most developed country, a nation in Africa. I need to know who can I go to, who can I go and ask, you know what, where did you get this information? You have not identified the subject. There's a verb. The verb here is the word considered, and who is being considered is Kenya. So if I was to annotate this, we will have our verb, and then we have a subject, and then we have the object. So the verb obviously is considered. Considered is a verb. It's just the past tense of the word consider, which is a verb, a doing word. The subject is missing, and the object in this case is Kenya. Kenya is the person or thing feeling the impact of the word consider. Kenya is the one being considered, sorry. But who is now doing the consideration? We want to know the person considering Kenya to be the most developed. So in this case, we don't have anyone. So it's missing. So therefore, this sentence is in passive voice. We can write it in active voice by introducing the person or thing doing the consideration. Maybe the person can be by the US. So Kenya is considered one of the most developed nations in Africa by the US. So we are saying is the US doing the consideration. However, by doing this, we will have used the by that we are just talking about here. We have interchanged the verb, the subject appears after the object. So once we introduce by who, the by who part, now rewrite the sentence to remove the problem we identify above here. By doing what? By starting with the word the US. So we'd write it by saying the US considers Kenya one of the most developed nations in Africa. So at this point again, although COVID-19 is not as deadly as Ebola, more needs to be done to protect low-income households from the harsh economic times. So if you look at this sentence, we have, this is a compound sentence. It has two sentences. So the first part is COVID is not as deadly as Ebola. We can split this into two sentences by saying the first sentence can be COVID is not as deadly as Ebola, full stop. The second bit will be more needs to be done, blah, blah, blah. So we can just remove the word although, put a full stop here and start another sentence. So this is an example of a compound sentence. So it has more, it might have more than one verb, more than one subject. But I want us to focus on this second part. More needs to be done. Here we were talking about is considered. So for you to figure out the problem in this, identify the verb and then ask yourself who is doing this verb. Can you identify that person in this sentence? More needs to be done. Answer the question by who. Okay, by who. So once you answer the question by who, introduce that person in this sentence. Maybe say by the government. Okay, by the government. More needs to be done by the government to protect. Okay, but then we would have interchanged. So we have to go back and start with the government. Okay. So we can say, although COVID-19 is not as deadly as Ebola, the government needs to do more. Okay. So I will say, although COVID-19 is not as deadly as Ebola, the government needs to do more. Okay. And then in terms of protecting, to protect. So this is how we can write the sentence. In this case, this sentence is in passive. Before we introduced the by government part, it was in passive voice. But now after introducing the who part, now it is in active voice. So what am I saying? When you are talking about academic writing, always write in active voice. Always try to avoid passive voice. And passive voice is very important because in academic writing, we have some software that help us in terms of proofreading and correcting some mistakes. One of them that we'll be learning about is called Grammarly. So Grammarly will actually help you identify mistakes in your paper. When you commit a mistake like forgetting a full stop, putting a comma where it's not supposed to be, or putting it incorrectly, things like punctuation issues, misspelled words, the software will tell you the correct thing to do. However, when it comes to passive voice, it will only tell you this sentence is in passive voice. It will not give you a solution. It will only tell you the sentence appears to be in passive voice. And there's a reason for it. The grammar will never guess you wanted to say the government. So that it tells you put here the government. In other mistakes, like if I was to forget to put a comma here, it will tell me to put a comma here. Because it knows the comma is supposed to be there. But when I forget to introduce the government, it won't guess and tell me put there the government. So it will just tell me, you know what, this sentence is in passive voice, so consider writing it in active voice. So that is very key. So whenever Grammarly tells you that a sentence is in passive voice, always try to identify the verb. In most cases, it will underline where the verb is. So once it underlines that verb, ask your question, who is doing that verb? Once you identify the person doing that verb, introduce that person in that sentence, and you're good to go. I don't know if I can use an example that I was reviewing a while ago. Let me just try to locate it. I was training somebody and they sent me some samples that I was going through, and the paper was okay, but there was a lot of passive voice. Okay, maybe to just use it so that maybe I can demonstrate that aspect more clearly. But again, I know you will commit a lot of passive voices in your samples, so I'm not even worried in terms of getting examples. So you'll be looking at your papers and you will be seeing a lot of them and correcting them. So let us look at this sample. This is just a sample paper that I was reviewing a while ago. So according to the Marketing Insider Group, many businesses are using online technology to support. So we'll be looking at some of these things. For example, here, many businesses are using. Are using is unnecessarily wordy. So you can just replace it by saying use. Okay, many businesses use online technology to support their marketing efforts in this digital era. On contrary, there's a mistake here, supposed to be on the contrary. According to some people, a lot of wordiness, so you can delete that. Okay, to kama hizo. So however, it is one way of engaging directly with customers, build relationship, and let me look at passive voice. Presents and opportunity to target specific groups in a particular location. Is direct way to interact with new and existing customers. Media creates an revenue, build your brand. Yeah, in academic writing, as we shall see, you're not supposed to be using first and second person pronouns. Again, it's one of the fastest way of this that works well. Okay, provides. Okay, I don't think this was the essay, but anyway, we'll be seeing more of these passive voice issues. But again, you can just go online and do some research. Okay, learn about passive voice. And understand what it means, how to avoid that. But the easiest way to avoid passive voice is to introduce the who, by who is doing it, who is doing the verb. So as in the samples that you will be writing, when I see a passive voice, I'll just be highlighting it and telling you this is PV, passive voice. So it's upon you to go back and check where I've underlined and answer the question by who. Introduce that person there and rearrange to make sure that the subject appears first. So I'll be going through that, and I think we'll be learning more. So I don't know if anyone has a question that they want to ask before we move on to the next bit. Any question you can just type. But these things are on the internet. By the way, I'm not the one who came up with these things. They are all on the internet. So I've already told you. So you just go online and learn more. But whatever I teach you will be enough for you to do good papers. So whenever you are writing, try to avoid interchanging the order. The subject should appear before the object in a sentence. And also try to avoid passive voice. Okay, always try to include the who. Let me see if I can find a sample. I think there was a sample. It had a lot of passive voice. A lot of passive voice was there, and I just felt like if we go through that, maybe we will understand what is going on here. So there's a sample here, but it's written in MLS, so the format might look a little bit different. Let me just locate one. So global warming, if you look at this sentence, global warming has also been caused by human-based industrial activities. So you can see this by. Okay, so this by is an indication that there's some interchanging of the subject and the object. So maybe this person should have started human-based industrial activities have also caused global warming. Okay, so human-based industrial activities, but there's no point of saying human-based industrial activities. If it's industrial activities, obviously it's human. Nothing else can do industrial activities besides human beings. So at this point, I don't feel like human base is supposed to be there. So this person should have started industrial activities that emit carbon dioxide gases have caused global warming, which eventually affect the vulnerable people in society. Okay, global warming has also increased climate refugees. Okay. I'm trying to look at so if you look at this, for instance, electric appliances should be switched off when not in use, and energy efficient bulbs such as should also be prioritized. So if you look at this, be switched off by, so this is passive voice. So introduce the by, the who are you switching. So maybe this person should have said, for instance, people should switch off electrical appliances. So we know it's people, we are talking about people. People are the ones switching off electric appliances. When not in use, and energy efficient bulbs such as LED should be prioritized. Should be prioritized by who? So the best way to maybe rewrite this sentence should be, let me just isolate it. For instance, people should switch off electric appliances when not in use and prioritize efficient bulbs like LEDs. This is wrong, and this is now the correct way to say it. So this is wrong, this is the correct way to say it. So in this case, there's no room for guessing. Okay, there's no room for guessing who is switching off. If you just say electrical eye should be switched off, we are asking by who? By monkeys, by cars, by who? Who is switching off? So this is a verb, okay, that does not have the subject, the person acting on it. Okay, so the first thing to do is right here by people. And then you realize we said you should not start you should not start with the object, start with the subject. So you rearrange it in this way. People should. Okay. So since you are still talking about the same people, there's no point of repeating the people here for the second bit again. So just write people should switch off electric appliances when not in use and prioritize efficient bulbs like LEDs. I think that is a good example. I don't know. Let me take some questions. Anyone with a question? Something that they have not understood. This is, by the way, the most important aspect of academic writing. This is now the content creation. It's part of content creation. Now, how do you get the answers? Not really how do you get answers, but how do you put down the answers? Which are the sentences that you're going to use? What are some of the do's and don'ts of academic writing? So this bit is very, very important, and I want you guys to I've recorded this video. I'll share it with you later. You need to take notes. Make notes, and the samples you're going to do from here on, I don't want to see some of these things. Try to limit them so that we know that we are learning. Try to limit passive voice in sentences. Try to not rearrange sentences using the word by. So every time before you use the word by, try to think twice. Is that by the one that we talked about, the one that indicates that you have interchanged the order of subject and the object? So if the answer is yes, sit back, rewrite that sentence starting with the object, with the subject, sorry. So that is very important. So if no one has a question, let me explain the next thing. Also in academic writing, it's very important for us to use scholarly resources. Okay, everything about academic writing is about research. Academic writing does not need you to write about your opinions. Everything should be well researched, should be objective data. You provide objective information. As such, using first and second person pronouns. If you don't know what this means, first person pronouns, first person. I don't think I should be telling what is a pronoun. These are parts of speech. We learned this way back in primary school. And I think we also learned it in Form 1 or Form 2. So I'm not going to take you through to explain what a pronoun means. So first person pronouns are things like I, me, mine, us, ours. What else? I, me, mine, ours. And then we have second person. Things like you, yours, you, yours. So these are the things you're not supposed to be using. Let me explain why. When you're using first person pronouns like say I think, mine, me, ours, it makes the paper appear like just an opinion. It's just your thing. I think, I know, mine, this is ours. It makes the paper have a subjective feel to it, an emotional feel to it. So it takes away the research work you have done. It makes the paper appear like just an opinion that you're trying to provide. So when you're using things like I, me, mine, us, ours, it makes the paper appear subjective. Yet, we need to make the paper appear objective. Something that you have researched, something that is scientific, doesn't have anything to do with your emotions or what you think. It's about research and facts alone. So whenever you use the word I, me, mine, ours, I don't know, you can go and look for more first person pronouns. There should be more. I, me, mine, ours, what else? We, those things that it's possession, I, mine, ours, okay? And then when you're using the second person pronouns, it makes the paper appear like a dialogue. It's like you are talking to somebody. And I think if I can look for some examples, let me just try. I think I was also reviewing a paper a while back, and the person was writing a lot of these things that we are not supposed to be writing. Yeah. So if I was to take you back to this sample, you can see here, global warming can be reduced by who? Can be reduced. So this is also a case of passive voice through throwing legs, food, considering public transport or more walking and biking, as well as changing hour. You see this hour. This is now an example of first person pronoun, which is not supposed to be here because it makes this paper appear like it's an opinion. It's just your thing. It's not a well researched paper. It's not objective. So this is an example where uh, uh, this person has used first person pronoun. I don't know if there was many cases. There were many cases. Yeah, there were just so many cases in this sample. Yeah, because to get another sample, it makes the paper appear personal, something that people should, should be empathetic to you. Yet this is just a research. It has nothing to do with your emotions or feelings or opinions. However, when you have been allowed to do that, they will categorically say you can use first person. Sometimes the question might even ask you, what is your opinion on this issue? Even if the question is asking for your opinion, don't write using I. The only case where you can use I is when there is a part in that question that they have explicitly said that you can use first person. So I was reading this and there was a lot of second person. So like in this case, social media presents an opportunity to create awareness of your products. So this is a case of second person pronoun. You are. It's like this person is talking to somebody here. Yet this is not a dialogue. This is just a research paper. It's not people talking. So when you're talking about you, it makes the paper appear like a dialogue rather than a researched paper. Social media presents opportunity to create awareness of your products within a short period. So this is a case where the second person pronoun. You can also see social media is a community market strategy that boosts your, that is also wrong. It enables you to understand the customers. You only use you as when it's a speech. You are in a conference. There are so many people there that you can you can relate to and you can ask them questions. But when you are doing academic writing, avoid using first and second person pronouns. So henceforth, do not use first and second person pronouns. I don't know if the sample I was looking at earlier has such issues. Yeah, so avoid using first and second person pronouns. Those are prohibited. The other thing you need to avoid when it comes to academic writing is avoid using contrasted words. Things like can't. Just write it in full. Cannot. Don't write can't. Shouldn't. Wouldn't. etc. Write it in full. E.g. Just write it the way it should be in full. Don't use contrasted words. That's very key. Again, this video is being recorded, so you'll have an opportunity to and also to make notes. Yeah, so basically avoid using contrasted words, all manner of contrasted words. By contrasted, I don't mean abbreviations like the UN, the US. Abbreviations are okay, but a contrasted word is like I'm not, saying I'm I'm not here. This is a contrasted word. So write it in full. I am. Okay. Don't write I'm. Just write I am. Cannot. Couldn't is wrong. So say could not. Mustn't, must not. Write everything in full. E.g., I think the interpretation of the word e.g. is example given. So just use the word for example. I.e. means in essence. So just write it in full. In essence, don't write I.e. No use of contrasted words. So I don't know. Anyone has a question? Question? No question. Okay, you guys, come on. You can't tell me you don't have a question you can ask. Ask questions. I'm giving you a few seconds. Okay, so I'll proceed. So you have said that in academic writing, try to avoid, or not even try to avoid passive voice completely. Also, avoid writing in first person or second person unless the question explicitly asks you to, to use it. Even when the question appears like it's something like you need to write from your opinion, like what is your opinion, what do you think, just write in academic voice, which means writing in third person. If you want to say him, her, they, that is third person. By the way, we have three of them. There's first person, second person, third person. The only ones you can't use is first and second, but you can use third person. Third person is like they, them, theirs, him, her, his, and out of you. So first and second person prohibited, but you can use third where it applies. So again, in academic writing, try to use simple sentences, which means you don't want to complicate it by using the word by, interchanging the order of verb and the order of subject and object. You want to write it to be more direct, where you start with the subject. Yeah. I would like to go to now the part where we talk about paragraphs. When we started, I mentioned that we organize our ideas into paragraphs, and I say that a paragraph don't just begin as one. Okay, it starts as a sentence. That's why it felt like it was important for me to go over some of the things, the rules that you need to take note of when constructing your sentences. So we organize our ideas into paragraphs, and there are rules when it comes to writing a paragraph. Like how many sentences should be in a paragraph, okay? How many ideas can you have in one paragraph? So I want to talk about that now. So one of the things most people get wrong is how many sentences make up a paragraph. By law, by rule, a paragraph cannot be a paragraph unless it has more, at least 3 sentences, not even more. Let's say minimum of 3 sentences. So if something has less than 3 sentences, that is not a paragraph. And I'm not saying writing a long sentence and then it looks like a big block of text and then you call it a paragraph. As long as it is one sentence, that thing is not a paragraph. So always ensure that every paragraph you write has a minimum of 3 sentences. If you don't have enough ideas to fill up 3 sentences, then that idea should not even be there in the first place because you can't explain it fully. But let me now tell you, you can't really explain an idea fully and comprehensively in 3 sentences, and therefore, even though the minimum is 3, you realize you need actually 6 or 7 or 8 so that you explain an idea fully and comprehensively and with all the details and examples so that the idea makes sense. So from now on, I want to tell you this. Don't write a paragraph with less than 6 sentences and send it to me for review. I will not review it. So minimum of sentences in a paragraph should be 6. I'm raising the bar for you. So work with 6. That allows you to really explain the idea. And by the way, if we are saying this, there's a reason behind it. So the first sentence in a paragraph, we call it there's a reason why we are saying we need three sentences. So the first sentence we call it the topic sentence. So the topic sentence is just a statement which introduces the idea of that paragraph. And then the second sentence is now explaining, which now you explain the So you realize the first sentence is called the topic sentence, which just introduces the idea. In most cases, they are just statements. And then the second, maybe the second, third, fourth, and fifth sentences now explain that idea. And then if you want, you can now tell us at the end of that paragraph, so what do we do? You can reaffirm the message of the paragraph, okay? So every paragraph should begin with a topic sentence, which just introduces the idea of that sentence. So if you are talking about, I gave you an assignment earlier about social media effects, okay? Maybe the point number 1 is depression. And then the first sentence of this paragraph should be, Full stop. So the following sentences now, after this one, should now be explaining the idea. How does it cause depression? Okay. So the following sentence number 2 will be explaining, number 3 explaining, number 4 explaining, number 5 may be now giving us what is the most important thing about this idea. What is the most important thing about the idea? So sentence 2 3, 4, 5, and 6. They will be doing what we call explaining the idea from multiple perspectives and providing examples where possible. Then sentence 7 so we have 7 sentences here. So the first one will be a statement. One of the effects of social media is that it causes depression among teenagers. Full stop. We call this a topic sentence. If I come to this paragraph and I read this sentence, I already know this paragraph will be about depression. And depression alone. Once you're done with the idea of depression, please start a new paragraph. And whenever you're starting a new paragraph, use what we call a transition word, where we can see that you're moving from idea 1 to idea 2. Transition words include things like besides, in addition to, in contrast, however, things like that. They just, like, if you're adding things, the transition word to use will be in addition to, besides. But if you are providing differences, you can use the conventional in contrast, so that we know you're contrasting things. So in this case, maybe the second point will be lack of sleep. I'm just coming up with, I don't know if it causes a lack of sleep or anything. So besides depression, social media may also cause insomnia. Insomnia is is it a medical insomnia among teenagers? Full stop. So insomnia is a medical word, I believe, for lack of sleep. Huh? So again, the other sentences will be doing the same thing. Explain the idea from multiple perspectives. You can quote different people according to so and so. Amnesia occurs because of this and this. Basically, explain the connection between social media and lack of sleep. Once you're done with the lack of sleep and you want to move to the next point, maybe suicide. Let's say cyber bullying. Okay, cyber bullying. You don't have to start with besides every time. Besides. You need to interchange, okay, so that you're not boring. So maybe you can start with cyber bullying is also unknown. Okay, let me pull this up. Social media usage is also, the word also there, the word also is the key word, is the transition word there. The also, somebody reading your paper sees the word also, they will know that there's something else you have already listed. So these things are flowing. You're not just copying things from different sources, but you are flowing. There's a flow from idea 1 to the next idea. So usage also is also a known risk factor of cyber bullying. Full stop. And then the other sentence will do the same thing. Okay, explain that. So this is how we organize our paragraphs. Every paragraph in your case must have a minimum of 6 sentences. I know the minimum kabisa yenye unaweza kuwa allowed ni 3, but usianiandikia paper iko na 3. 3 is not sufficient to explain ideas. You need to focus on explaining ideas fully. You'd rather pick few ideas and explain them fully than having 20 ideas and all of them are just sketchy. So whenever you're doing research, like we talked about in the previous class, you might encounter so many points. You might locate so many points online. What you do, take a piece of paper, write them down, and select the best that you feel you can really approach deeply and explain fully. So in this case, I'm talking about minimum of 6 sentences per paragraph. So every paragraph must have a minimum of 6 sentences. And I've shown you how those sentences are distributed. The first one is always the topic sentence. That is given. It's always a statement. Just write it as a statement which introduces the idea of that paragraph. And that means that paragraph should only be about that idea. If it's about things about cyberbullying, if this paragraph should only strictly be about cyberbullying. And in most cases, you'll spend a lot of time showing the connection. In this case, the second sentence might explain how social media causes cyberbullying. The third one might provide examples or data or cities or studies that have been conducted to prove that cyberbullying increases with social media usage. So maybe sentence 2 and 3 will now show the connection between social media usage and cyberbullying. In other words, does social media itself bully people, or what makes cyberbullying so rampant in social media? Maybe you might talk about the fact that when people are on social media, they are always behind the keyboard, So this gives them the what we call it encourages them to abuse people, attack people online, body shame people and all that, because they're behind the keyboard. They can use pseudonyms, So all these factors that social media provide, like the ability to be anonymous, you can just speak a username that is not related to you, and use that profile to attack people. That alone is a contributor to cyberbullying, because people know I won't be held responsible. So you can talk about that. You can say how social media is contributing to cyberbullying. You can explain that cyberbullying, social media allows people to post comments, reply messages in anonymous mode. This encourages them to attack people because they know they won't be caught. Then go to now scientific material and consult. Is there a study that was conducted that showed when people use more social media, they're more likely to face to be cyberbullied? So you're going to cite this according to so and so. You can start with, for example, a study conducted by a study 2022 showed that teenagers who use social media every day have at least encountered cyberbullying every other, whatever. Another study by Anastasia also showed that you can now relate to various people. That's how you build up these sentences, showing real life examples whenever possible, giving as many examples as you can until you have the minimum of 6 sentences. And then the last sentence will be, now what is the key word? It is now very important to maybe you can tell us why is cyberbullying a problem. Considering the impact of cyberbullying, social media is a very bad thing. Okay, because cyberbullying now is a problem. Lack of sleep. If you're talking about lack of sleep, connection between social media, lack of sleep. Why is lack of sleep a problem in the first place? Because if it wasn't a problem, we wouldn't be worried. Depression. The connection between social media and depression. Show us that connection. Quote resources. Go to scholarly databases. Look for studies that connect social media and depression. Give us some numbers if they are available. Show us that the studies that conducted concluded that most people who use social media are more likely to suffer depression. Okay, or people who are depressed most likely use social media. Show us those studies, give us the numbers, what percentage of people, then tell us why is this depression a problem. Maybe you can tell us depression is a problem because it contributes to this percent of medical emergencies, blah blah blah. So this is how you build your ideas. So make sure every paragraph has an idea of its own. That idea starts there and ends there. Every paragraph has its own idea. Do not mix the ideas. Please. Every idea on its own paragraph. Every paragraph a minimum of 6 sentences. Every paragraph must begin with a topic sentence. And please remember to use transition words like besides, in addition to, in contrast, depending on what you are writing. If you are writing similarities, you can talk about in terms of also, if you're talking about differences, you can talk about in contrast as opposed to. So you can just go online and learn about transition words. So again, this video is being recorded. So you can watch it later and make notes on these things, because I'm speaking, I know I'm speaking fast, but you can watch later and make notes so that you can remember what I've said about Googling transition words, examples of transition words in sentences. You can just Google examples of transition words in sentences, so you can see. But basically, when you're writing paragraphs, try to connect them using transition words. Okay, using things like besides, but don't use besides when you're giving differences. Okay, you can basically we have transition words for every occasion. Okay, when you're talking about similarities, there are transition words suitable for that. When you're talking about things adding up, an addition of points, point 1, point 2, point 3, you can talk about in addition, besides, and such. You can just go to the internet and check. So, any questions at this point? Nobody is asking questions. I hope you guys are understanding. No questions. Yeah, so I think that is all for today. So, you guys were working on social media and teenagers, okay? So you will go back and redo it based on what you have learned, okay? Organize those sentences. Make sure you don't use passive voice. Make sure you have not interchanged the order of verb by subject and object. Ensure you don't use contrasted words like can't, e.g. Write them in full. I'm not saying you shouldn't use them. I'm just saying don't use it in a contrasted way. Write it in full. If it's can't, the correct spelling is cannot. So write it cannot. Yeah. Again, organize ideas into paragraphs. And every paragraph must have a minimum of 6 sentences. Okay, and don't forget to cite the way we learned yesterday. There are so many videos online about citing that I've uploaded, but again, I shared videos with you about citings in APA. And again, I think we'll cover that later. I'll talk about oral citations. Whenever you use according to, you can put it at the end, at the beginning, the middle of a sentence. We'll go through that, and then from there we will move on to now things like essays, where you learn about how to write an introduction, how to do a conclusion. When do you need an introduction and a conclusion? Do you always need an introduction for every paper? We'll cover that later, and then we move on to MLA and the other styles, and then we do some PowerPoints, and then we'll be done. So if nobody has a question, you can stop there so that we pick up next time. I don't know sijui kama mnanisikianga, but let me just give you a few seconds so that nione kama kuna question ina pop up, because you guys decided you're not going to communicate with me. If I ask something, you decide mtajibu.